Welcome to Layers. In this episode, we're going to explore something that sits right at the intersection between design and representation, but also goes beyond that. And today's conversation it's connected with the design process, but more specifically with Matty's thesis.
Yeah.
So the format will be slightly different. Um, we'll be exploring how photography can be used as a tool in not just for documenting interiors, but also as a active tool in the design process. Why did you choose this
Sweaty.
topic? I can feel it. Why did you choose this topic?
So, for the thesis, since this was like a master thesis, I wanted to connect two of my biggest passions, which are photography and interior design. And it was quite interesting to me to find a way on how to connect them, since we don't think about them that much. We always consider them as separate fields.
Mhm.
But there are some qualities and intersections between them. And that's also why what I wanted to explore with this thesis. So kind of combining my two passions and see how they were doing. And at the end, like photography literally means capturing light. And it was very fascinating for me because light is also a very big quality in interior design. And as you mentioned before, we usually understood photography more for documentation or at the end of the process or at the beginning. While it could be so much more, like it can go beyond just representational matters. That's why I decided to go for it.
Okay.
Finding that, which actually at the beginning it was a different direction before building it into the design process.
Yeah, I remember.
It was more about capturing the interiors and working with that, but then talking with the teachers as well, maybe it was more interesting to see how it could be developed in the design process itself rather than just like photography and photography in interiors. So
I'm gonna start with the first question, so we can go through your old thesis, which I already read. But so I prepared a few questions for you.
my god, this is
So,
like high school.
no, don't worry, very simple. So, I'm gonna start first with a general question. So,
Okay.
what is the connection between photography and interior design, and why it's important?
Okay. So to answer this question, I think I need to clarify a little bit photography and interior design, just to have a little idea of the two different fields separately before going into the intersection between them. So as I mentioned before, photography is a tool for capturing a moment, but it's something that is carrying a lot of emotions, a lot of atmosphere, a lot of memories. So there is a lot of this conceptual depth around it. And it's not only about capturing a moment, but it's also about constructing meaning. Because every time we take a photograph, it's because we want to remember, or it's something that can help us remembering. And this is also something that is already a little bit connected with interior design, because interior design is something that has to do with feelings and atmospheres a lot. So this is already a little bit the first connection. But if we think about interior design, as we also learned during our classes, research seminar, for example, in uni, is a discipline that is always evolving, and it's quite new compared to architecture or product design, which were pretty much established before. Therefore, while even photography and architecture is widely explored, in interior design is just used for mostly at the end of the project to show how the final result is. But there are some very interesting perspective, even from Brooker and Sally Stone, for example, which they consider interior as instead of an object in the phrase as a verb, because interior it considered as a process.
Okay.
So instead of having interior as an object, interior design, the interior is the verb that conducts the process of doing something, which I found very interesting.
Yeah, that's so interesting.
Because it's a little bit like the shift of perspective, and interiors are something which is mainly ephemeral, but also something that is constantly changing and evolving. It shifts way more because we're talking about something that is not constructed, like architecture, for example, but something that is done within a space, which can be a house or more ephemeral, like an installation or exhibition. And here comes also the intersection between photography and interior design, which, if we imagine like a Venn diagram, it's like this little connection, which is mainly capturing interiors and also how can like the tool, the design process. So this sorry, this intersection between photography and interior is also because they both use interpretation and translation about the world we live in, because at the end they both have to do with the human experience. Even though one is something that we live and the other one is something that we look at afterwards or during we do something, and evoke feelings. Like both have the main goal to evoke a feeling and an atmosphere at the end.
Okay.
So I think it's very important to consider them, these intersections that they both have.
So the main thing is time, and then meaning and feelings, and also storytelling.
Exactly.
So while I was reading your thesis, I also found very interesting your focus on storytelling and how photography is really about narrating the space, not just, as you said, like documenting it.
Exactly.
So, second question. Second question. Would you say that photography becomes a way to construct a space and but also narrate within the interior design?
Yes. So if we consider interior design, you mentioned three things: temporality, the meaning of the image, and the storytelling, which they can all be included in this visual storytelling that photography creates at the end. So, as I mentioned before, interiors are very ephemeral because they can change more often based also of the needs or of the changing cultures, everything that has to connect with the human experience at the end. And photography is the perfect way to capture also that. So, for example, if you have a space and you can capture from time to time how it transforms and something becomes something different, based on the little, even just a little change. So you can also create this visual archive, which is very helpful during the design process itself. Because even for a client or even for yourself, you can see the changes that you did during the process. And when I talk about photography, it's not only about taking pictures, but it's also like if you have a model, for example, and you do a model at the beginning and you take a photo of it, you can also realize how to change different things based on the model. And as I mentioned before, all these photographs that we take or the photography that we use have meaning. And while what I mean about meaning is that um, they can evoke feelings, but also they can be quite literal. Like if we look at the semiotics and the codes, for example, because we have to create this visual language at the end of the day. And architects and designers have to use like drawings to explain their projects. So it's quite important to create this visual language that can be understood. And images are something that it's usually quite immediate, as way more sometimes than drawings, because everyone pretty much can understand what's going on in an image. And we, without even realizing, use images for literally everything. And so the storytelling is important, and it goes from the beginning till the end of the project, because with this temporality and capturing the qualities of over time, as well as the image, like the images used themselves, create this visual storytelling that help you also guide your project, and you create this kind of language even for yourself. And I think that's very interesting, because at the end, everything has a storytelling, and you're much more emotionally engaged with the project if you have that storytelling.
It feels like photography and design kind of overlap,
Yes.
and photography, it becomes a way to test your ideas to see if they actually are working, especially like atmosphere, or
Exactly.
like we're using photographic kinds of also like gives you new ideas that you could use, and it's a like super useful tool.
It can help also in the decision making,
Mm-hmm.
because you can look at it and you can use the different perspectives also to and influence your own opinion of the space at the end of the day. And I also want to point out that when I talk about photography, photography is obviously the taking a photo, but also it's broader, meaning that photography meaning also the images that are the result, photographic images that are the result of it, which is basically everything we do, we work with.
Okay, I'm gonna go with the next question.
Okay.
So, thinking about the design process more broadly, how does photography actually enters to it?
Yeah. To answer this question, even while I was writing the thesis, I asked myself a question,
Okay.
which was, if images can think, how can they think with us? Meaning that, yeah, because I was like, okay, during the design process, how am I thinking through the images and that I take or that I use from others? Which was very interesting because it helped me refine and going through the process myself. And as I mentioned before, it helps also with decision making. And I think here it's very interesting to mention Julius Schulman. He was a architectural photographer, but he also said multiple times that during the design process, designers should put themselves behind the camera and look at the space or what they're designing from a different perspective, because that would also help them redesign or rethink about something. And so photography becomes like this interpretative lens through which you look at a space, which I found very interesting. And then obviously, while I was researching, there are a lot of different techniques that can be integrated within the design process from the beginning. So if we look at the design process more specifically for interior design, we usually have the context analysis. And here, for example, photography is usually used to take pictures of the actual state of the space, and also to take notes about the measurements or something. It's something super quick, and it's more as a tool of documenting and annotating. And then we move to the concept, so it's more the research and research phase. Sorry, I'm taking the design process just to understand a little bit, maybe more where we understand. And here, maybe we use more mood boards, collages to give more an idea of the atmosphere or a feeling that we also want to evoke. And
can I say something?
Yes, of course. No, you
no.
cannot.
While I was reading the thesis, and then I was thinking I'm already using like photographs for like designing, but unconsciously. For example, like collages,
Yeah.
like quick collages, just to understand if I'm at the right direction or I have to change something. Also, that like really useful.
Yes, I think collage is something that I wasn't really using before,
Mm-hmm.
but
Me neither.
yeah,
Right.
but here I explored it even more. And at the end, you can use photographs that you also took yourself. You know, maybe you see something interesting, like, I don't know, a texture around, and you take a photograph of it, and
Yeah.
then you can use it in your collage. For example, Mies van der Rohe was using a lot the collages to give an idea of the space. And even Enric Miral, they're like really artworks at the end. They're artworks within the design process, because at the end, you're cutting. I think now there is also the digital collage, for example, so you can also do it digitally, so you don't have to cut things yourself. But before, that's how it was done, which is also interesting because you are a little bit more active in a way, and you feel also the different textures.
We tried to do that for the design principles
We
with
did.
a small. It was a small project, and we did like a first collage, but we actually like paper and texture we had to cut and then create a collage of the space. But it was in the concept like phase, so basically at the start.
Yeah, collages, they are like usually either during the concept to give an atmosphere, like feel a feeling
Mm-hmm.
of the project. And here it's where you also do mood boards, image boards. Um, so it's more conceptual maybe, and where you start giving even the idea of the materials, or we did this meaning diagram with images which
Yeah.
had to evoke from it, for example, from a more realistic to go more in a deeper um, mental state, or something that was recalling but it wasn't directly referring to something specific. um, and then in the collage there is also assemblage and bricolage, which we usually think that they are for kids. I don't know, bricolage I was doing a lot when I was
Me too.
in primary school, but it's also a way to be active and explore this technique. Uh, then, as I mentioned, digital collage notations, which I found very interesting as well. Because, for example, notation could help you deconstruct a space, or and help you analyze what you want to keep. For example, if we think about this temporality of a space, of, for example, the Musée d'Orsay in Paris, there is something new which was added after, because it was a train station before.
Mm-hmm.
And I clearly like outlined what is new and what is old, and from the notation you can clearly see what is old and new. This was something that also, for example, Le Corbusier was doing. And another interesting thing that he was doing was drawing on photographs and taking like um, drawing that could also be like the project on top, or like what he wanted to erase or adding, or how to make things better. Le Corbusier was also one of the architects that was really using photography, and he was sometimes adjusting his project because so that it would look good on the camera, which was very interesting to me. And I think before it was very interesting, these techniques, because I had to research a little bit in the past, like the masters from the past,
Mm-hmm.
with also how do studios and designers do that now. And it was quite difficult because before they used to show a lot more the process, the entire process, while now we tend to show just the final plans and photographs. So it was quite hard. But for example, this technique of drawing on photographs was also done by Laura. Sorry, I don't know if I'm pronouncing it correctly, but it's Prouvost, Prouvost, which is from the exhibition we saw um, at the. It's always this that I
Kraftwerk.
Kraftwerk. Yeah, exactly. Um, so this technique, and I found like this parallel between Le Corbusier and also what she did, but that could also be very helpful if you draw on a picture so that you can have an idea and a sketch. It doesn't have to be perfect. But it's interesting because all these little things that you do also become quite some artworks. And then the last technique is the 3D rendering and hyper realistic rendering, which is now very trending. And it has some very good qualities because you can really give the idea of the space and the feeling through all the materials. And you can, it's basically like photography. It's very similar to it because you're positioning a digital camera inside your render. And it's like you're taking a picture and you can adjust the lighting, the setting. So it's really like very similar to photography.
It's super realistic, and then also like you can choose the specific like I want to do it in the early morning, or I
Exactly.
want to see the light in the afternoon, so you can understand how the space and the colors like are changing during the day, which is also like super helpful.
Which is also what we do with photography. Like you
Yeah.
usually, like even Schulman in his book, he was like saying that he was setting like the space he wanted to take a photo of, and it was like based also on the light, the time of the day. So with the render, you can do basically all this, but from your PC, which is interesting, and I think it's also the direction that we're taking nowadays. I also like during my project thesis try to explore this a little bit more, meaning that I designed a boutique hotel, and every room was from a different era of photographic era, kind of. And what I did is that I found for each era a specific photographer which had like specific qualities or characteristic that I found very interesting. And I tried to replicate my renders using all these different techniques, meaning not only like rendering but collages and emulating what these photographers were doing. And then at the end I had like photographs, and it was quite interesting to.
Yeah, they were beautiful. And then the thing is, I think using these techniques then makes the renderings even more original than what you usually see, and also like helps you pick the right like angle, the right like little detail as well. So yeah, at the end they came out like chef's kiss.
Thank you. She's exaggerating, but it was interesting to develop these new techniques, you know. And it's interesting because, for example, you use a lot more collage. I used this rendering collage, but it was in a different way. And it's interesting because everyone can explore with photography kind of what they want to do.
Yeah, also like based on the project, there are like I feel like there are projects that maybe a collage at the end will be better because it gives like another type of feeling at the end, or other projects are better with realistic renderings. And so also like it depends on what you want to communicate. Yeah.
Yes, but I think that's what also interesting in the design process. It's we don't realize how much we use photography, but it's interesting to see and use it within the whole design process at the end, because it can be really helpful as a tool for the designer within the whole process from beginning till the end.
I'm gonna ask you another question.
Oh my god.
But a quick one. Like, if you had to choose which technique will be your favorite one?
All right. So, I think my favorite technique, like my favorite tool, is probably during the conceptual phase. So probably like I love doing mood boards, and I think I'm also pretty strong. Like it's one of my strengths. So I would say that's one of my favorite, but I'm enjoying more and more also doing collages. I think because it's something that I wasn't used to do before. While renders, I did so many already in my bachelor's, and it's something that I already explored. So it's interesting to explore something new to also enrich myself. But yeah, probably the mood boards are
Yeah.
image boards. Because it's also a matter of researching the right photographs, of taking the right photographs for the time, and the right meaning of the photographs and how you associate it. If it's something that it's more abstract, how you associate it with a project. And I always find it super interesting.
It is. I agree.
What is yours?
Mine. I would say the same, but I learned that also like the site photography, it's super interesting and useful. Before I was seeing just to like a tool to record what it's there, but like with the last project that I did for my thesis, it was more like useful to see what were the opportunities that the space was already giving me.
Yes.
And it was I was it opened a little bit my eyes, and I appreciate a lot like also that kind of way to use photography in the design process, because it helps you frame what the space is already like giving you.
What is the meaning, what was before there, so that you can also maybe carry a little bit the emotional connection.
Yeah, not just to see it what I should do to fix the space, what I have to do to improve it, but what's already like the atmosphere, the light, or the proportion that I can use to that it's already good, but I can improve it. So
yeah, integrating. That's why I think photography, and I think you didn't realize, but you had a lot of it as well, because you used a lot of the symbols that were in the church. And you did, I remember at the beginning, you did this mood board between materials new and what made you wanted to integrate as materials. And it's already like showing how you use the photography, and some photographs like that you also took yourself from the windows, the glass windows.
I think unconsciously I use photography in every part of the project, every single part of the design process for my project.
Yeah, that's why it was interesting for me, because we always consider them separate, like, oh, photography is one thing and interior design is another. But they can actually help each other's in a lot of ways, as we saw, because really like this emotional connection that you have really can come out. And another thing that I almost forgot that I found quite interesting is that there is photo montage, image making and stuff, and there is montage, which is usually done more in video making. But while I was researching it, I was like, this would be interesting as well to do with photographs, but for interiors, because at the end it's like a series of photos put all next to each other that create like a frame.
Okay.
So I was like, how interesting would it be if we could do that also to interior design, like or design, like to improve and process a way of thinking, which is kind of underexplored. And I think even as interior design is a quite new discipline, it's important to find new tools and new way to represent it as well. So it's something like to explore more and more and find also your own technique in a way.
I will go with the last question. Okay. Looking at the present, where does AI fit in all of this?
That's a very interesting and on point question, because nowadays we live in a world where we have thousands of images. We live in a world with unlimited images. Before, they were on magazine and you had to really research. But now with the internet, it's like an AI, you can create unlimited images, which is these new digital tools and AI are reshaping a little bit also how we work. I think it's always better to embrace something new and kind of yeah.
I moved my microphone.
I think it's important to use them and embrace them from the beginning instead of saying no, I don't want to use them. I think these digital techniques and AI are gonna change how we think, how we create, even how we design, because at the end, they are a new tool. But it's also like I've seen a lot of people using AI to create spaces, and they're not even designers, for example, or architects. And the image quality, you you can see that it's done by like it's fake. I think if used correctly, they can be some very very powerful tools because it's you have to be really good at writing what you want exactly them to do. So
We tried once, and it took like hours to create the right images because the prompt apparently weren't that good to create the image. So I thought it was easy, and then yeah, it's not that easy.
yeah, I think as everything that we learn and everything new, we have to learn how to use them properly, and then they can help. Obviously, like as a designer, if I see someone doing interiors with AI but they don't know anything about it, and they
No, but like that, it stays just a picture.
exactly.
It's nothing more.
But I think with the internet, there are a lot of pros because we have really limited images. But sometimes, like while I was researching and I was seeing the process of the big ones, the masters of design and architecture, I was like, how cool it was that they had magazines. They had a lot of magazines, and they had to go through them to find the right image. But obviously now we are raised and born with that. It's way easier. But I do think that these new tools are gonna reshape how we think and how we design, and also how we see things, how we create, and what we dream about. Because with AI, you can do literally whatever, and I think you can dream somehow maybe bigger. So it's really gonna change that. What I want to say is that at the end of this conversation that we had, is that I want to read a little bit like how I ended my thesis, because at the end this was a big process. It was a year of research, but it was also more than that, I think, because I explored some things that help myself and maybe even others, because this is a very under researched and underdeveloped topic. So it was frustrating at times.
Look for the sources.
It was, yes, because nobody was talking about it, and I'm like, tell me something. I want this too. Which was interesting because I'm like, they actually relate so much, but it's always about photography and architecture, because that's been done since the beginning of architecture, which is way older than interior design. But I want to say that photography is the lens that I chose for my thesis. But there is a deeper aim, which is to open space for curiosity, to remind us that design is not static. It shifts, transforms, and reinvents itself, even with these new tools and with the human experiences. And therefore, should the tools we use. Let photography be the starting point, but don't stop there. Explore, invent, and create your own way of seeing and your own tools. Because it's important. And we mentioned last week that everyone has a different design process. Everyone thinks in a different way. It's interesting to see how people explore themselves and what they do with their own techniques. And there are so many infinite possibilities. So my aim was to focus and point on photography as a tool, but there is so much more. Like, it's an invitation to everyone to share, explore more everything that they do within the design process and their tools.
Great. Amazing.
That was like the conclusion, the poetic conclusion.
We decided that we are gonna close every interview with a last question, and then we can relax.
I'm sweating, guys. I'm like, oof, memories.
But the last question is that it's not like connected to your thesis, but more with you.
I love how you're explaining that to me, but
We decided
because obviously, like, we're gonna have a guest on the show, so
yeah, but I'm interviewing you, so I'm doing my job. So what layers of yourself are you currently exploring?
I love that we wrote this, and it's so difficult, actually.
Difficult. Yeah.
Because I think I'm exploring different layers.
Mm-hmm.
It's singleness. No, I'm kidding. This was a joke. I think I'm exploring the layer of actively doing something, meaning that not stopping, but putting myself out there and trying everything and never saying no to things, but always putting me out there. Because at the end, it's where I am. I'm in a layer of transformation, a phase of processing things, going from one thing to another, which was like from student to the real world. So yeah, I'm in a very transformational layer where it's
Love
exciting.
this answer. Love it. I'm gonna give you a 9 out of 10.
Why not 10 out of 10? You like more exploring my single era? We should do an episode about that.
Oh, we need 3 episodes for that.
I'm exploring the era of how unlucky I am in love, so I hope that my career goes well.
If love doesn't work will work.
I mean, I can accept being rich and alone.
You will be rich without a husband.
Yeah, it's funny because for the people who listen but don't know us personally, Sophie is in a very long and committed relationship, while I'm
7-year relationship for me, and single for money.
Nothing for what?
Nothing for money.
Only heartbreaks.
But in Berlin it's difficult, so you're excused.
Thank you. I mean,
and it's not your fault. It's the boys here are a little bit like crazy.
Yeah, the boys here are interestingly like, they're so cute sometimes. I'm like, oh,
they're cute. But I heard so many stories, and every time I'm thinking, oh, thank God, I don't have to do this.
You're a lucky girl, let me tell you. But yeah, maybe one day we'll do an episode about love and dating in Berlin.
Okay.
We hope you enjoyed the episode.
Thank you for sharing your thesis and your research.
You guys are welcome. You can read my thesis, and if you are interested, it's very interesting. This was like just 40 minutes, but super interesting. Go read it, my thesis. I don't even know where people can read it. From the library.
They can ask.
No, the library. It's on the library, or you can ask me. I'll send it to you.
sensible.
Bye, guys.
Bye.